Boom, boom, boom. Let's go back to my room. Deep cuts from the 80s here on a Wednesday morning on Up North News Radio. It is 6 o'clock in the morning on this Wednesday, October 30th. I'm Pat Kreitlow here in Chippewa Falls. Greg Bach is at Radio Park in Racine, and we have a nice little show put together for you here. 6 days until the election. We're going to start this hour with our climate check with Melissa Baldoff, and we will be joined by the superintendent for the Northland Pines School District up north. Solar energy has been a thing there up in the Northland Pines District for 20 years now, and the Inflation Reduction Act is making things even easier for them to embrace renewable sources to keep their electric bills down. We'll talk about that. In our second hour, State Senator Chris Larson is part of our homeroom segment. It seems rather on brand that if we're going to be talking about the Republican-led legislature requiring a new literacy program, that they would not have the literacy skills to read the law and find it necessary to fund the program that they created. We'll talk more about that. And Todd Allbaugh checks in from his statewide bus tour, highlighting the things that make Wisconsin great as voters get set to make choices that could help or hinder that greatness. Elizabeth Montmorrow will be here to have clips of the many people she's talked to, more of the VIPs crisscrossing Wisconsin in this final week of the campaign, Brittany Merlot's forecast, and Melissa Kay from WFHR, WIRI in Wisconsin Rapids as part of today's history lesson. All that and more starting at 6:06 across the Civic Media Radio Network and right here. See you soon.
all across Wisconsin from Civic Media. This is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wissota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Wednesday morning, October 30th, 2024. Just 6 days away now until Election Day, and it's another beautiful morning to have you here up north, live from Lake Wissota, from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network or on the app or by podcast or on social media. Hope you have battened down the hatches sufficiently for that wind that just keeps blowing out of the south and out of the southwest, and it will not be too much longer before it's blowing straight out of the north, and we are going to have a big change in the weather coming, sadly, just in time for trick-or-treating, but that's not a surprise. Halloween just has been this way for as long as we can remember, and so just remember that the weather you're experiencing today is not the way to dress the kids for Halloween tomorrow night. It's going to be a lot different by then. I got a question for you. Does Ron Johnson know that we know the role that he played in Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the election? I mean, he tries to play dumb, but does he know that we know that he was very nearly a mule for fraudulent ballots from fake electors? And that if Mike Pence had gone along with this scheme as an accessory, Ron Johnson would have been an accessory? I ask because, of course, lacking that self-awareness, Ron Johnson's out there making noise about, Democrats are already cheating in this election, and Donald Trump is talking about Democrats are already cheating in this election. When, like 4 years ago, there's no cheating. There's no cheating going on. The only cheating going on are the people who are trying to undermine public confidence in our elections. So we'll talk a bit about that. We'll talk about a comment that Trump made yesterday about the economy and how Wall Street's only doing well because he's running for president. Really? Let's look at the record. We'll see what the record has to say about that. Along the way, call or text us 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. Also coming up today, we have our climate check report with Melissa Baldoff, and we will be joined by the superintendent for the Northland Pines School District. That school district up north has been involved with solar energy projects for 20 years now. But the Biden-Harris Inflation Reduction Act is making it even easier for them to continue to embrace renewable sources of energy, which saves on the utility bill, which saves for the property taxpayers up in the Northland Pines District. So we will talk more about that. In our second hour, we will talk to State Senator Chris Larson from Milwaukee. We're going to be talking about literacy. It's important to note that we've talked a lot about the school referendums and the way that the Republican-led legislature led to the conditions that have all these referendums, but we haven't said enough lately about the conditions that the Republican legislature gave school districts when it comes to literacy programs. They're requiring a new literacy program, but now they're holding back the funds to actually pay for it. They are quite literally embracing an unfunded mandate, perhaps because they lack the literacy skills to read state law, the thing that they are supposed to be responsible for. We will hear from Up North News reporter Elizabeth Montemurro, who has been meeting with some of the VIPs crisscrossing Wisconsin on behalf of the Harris Walls campaign and on behalf of Tammy Baldwin. And tomorrow on this program, you'll hear from one of those surrogates, California Congressman Adam Schiff. I spoke with him last night as he was in Wisconsin doing some campaigning for Senator Baldwin, and we'll have that interview for you tomorrow morning. And finally, today we'll talk to Todd Allbaugh. He's on a bus tour across Wisconsin, talking about things that make Wisconsin great in this final week before the election, when choices are made that could either help or hinder that greatness. You don't need me to tell you, I will anyway. Early voting is underway, and you can learn more about it either at the Up North News voting guide, upnorthnewswi.com, or the Civic Media voting guide, civicmedia.us. You really should check them both out. And in both cases, they'll also point you to the Wisconsin Elections Commission website, myvote.wi.gov. where you can learn how you can still this week vote. You can already have your vote cast. I don't know this for certain, but I believe the number of early votes cast, I want to look at yesterday's number here really quick. Yesterday's number was 989,678. So yes, it will, when the new numbers are released in a couple of hours here, we will be able to confirm that more than 1 million people in Wisconsin have already voted. They've already cast their votes. Do not have to pay attention to the political ads or the mailers anymore. Although it's tough not to, because they're everywhere. They're everywhere. Let's welcome in Greg Bach from Radio Park down in Racine, part of the civic media empire. And you notice that his hands are empty, which means he's not been to his mailbox lately. Greg, I was with at a neighborhood little get-together last night, and all people could talk about was just yesterday alone, one of our neighbors had 10 mailers in their mailbox, political mailers. And they're looking at me, of course, with political experience, like, doctor, help me. What can I do about this? And I told them, and I've mentioned this once or twice, but as soon as people don't like to talk to pollsters, people don't like to talk to canvassers, but as soon as they know that you are pretty much a straight confirmed Republican or Democrat, at least one side leaves you alone. You cut the amount of communication in half. But here's the trade-off. As soon as one side or the other knows you're confirmed with them, you get that many more text messages asking for money. So yeah, I can help you with the mail. I can't help you with the text messages. It just is what it is. What are you getting down there?
I'm getting tons of both sides. I had a couple come to my house, I don't know, like a month and a half ago. I was working in the garage, and I just said, I'll save you the time. I'm voting for Kamala Harris. I'm voting Democrat. My wife is too. And I didn't say that on behalf of her as like, she's voting the way I vote. I just knew she was voting. So don't at me. And I thought, all right, we're good to go. Well, that same guy, the guy of the couple, came to my door last week with stuff for me. And I'm like, what? And then on Sunday, this very nice young woman knocked on my door, and I just want to be like, I'm voting on Tuesday.
See, and that's the part that's going on right now. People are like, wait, I've declared. I've told them I'm voting. But you know what you're getting now? You're getting, have you voted yet? Have you voted yet? Have you voted yet? Yep.
And when I brought the trash bins in yesterday, but then I also checked the mail after that. And as I'm walking from the mailbox to the trash bin, I'm just like, check out, voted, all right, voted, never hovedy, never hovedy, never hovedy, never hovedy. Yeah, it's just all the paper wasted. I'm not going to lie. All the paper wasted on me, at least.
Oh, just overall.
I mean, we both worked in politics. We both worked in campaigns. I don't know a person who has ever said, I'm going to vote for this guy. This is a really nice mailer.
Yes. It's the kind of thing that you should do. You actually should do mail early on if you're a challenger, if you're unfamiliar to people, and get your face out there and get your name out there. But this mail that comes in late like this is an absolute waste. And it really should be, in my mind, it should be more positive if it's going to come at all, is to strike this positive tone, because we're already getting plenty of negative as it is.
And you anger people too. I remember getting calls saying, if I get one more piece of mail, either I got two of them, the next piece of mail I get from you, I'm voting for the other guy, or whomever sends me the next piece of mail, I'm voting for the other guy. Like just never mind that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, which by the way is not the way to determine how you should vote. But I understand the anger. I definitely understand the frustration. We'll talk a bit, or we'll hear a bit from Vice President Kamala Harris in just a bit, who had a rally on the Ellipse in the Capitol yet last night, and it was quite a sight. They were thinking maybe 20,000 people, then 30,000 people, and the total crowd estimate is anywhere from 60 to 70,000 people. And Greg, she stood at the very same spot in the Ellipse where Donald Trump stood on January 6, 2021. And apparently Kamala Harris's mob did not light torches and pitchforks. They did not storm the Capitol. They did not beat up on law enforcement officers. So It can be done. You can
Yeah.
gather and listen to somebody and not try to overthrow the government.
They had spillover at the Washington Monument too, and what was it? I wanted to put this on Twitter, but I'm like, this is not going to work as a joke. But in my head, I'm like, please don't tell anyone that she had a bigger crowd than he did on January 6th.
Oh God! Oh no, no. And if you look at, somebody put together, kind of a mashup between the speech that she gave in that location versus the speech Trump gave in that location. And one, of course, is uplifting and talking about the greatness of America. And the other is, we're the garbage can for the world and you got to fight like hell and everything else about it. And it's such a contrast that I believe continues to turn people off. But, we won't know for sure until next week. But
I agree.
A real study in contrast, and again, we'll play that clip coming up in just a moment here. First at 6:17, let me tell you a bit about sports. There will be a Game 5 in the World Series, as the Yankees did finally win a game and beat the Dodgers 11-4 at Yankee Stadium. The Dodgers are still up 3-1. Game 5 will be this evening at 7 o'clock. If the Yankees win that one, whether they do or not, the next game will be Saturday in Los Angeles. I'm sorry, Friday in Los Angeles, and then again Saturday if necessary. The Packers will host the Detroit Lions at Lambeau Field. 3:25 is the kickoff on Sunday, and you'll be able to catch that game on civic media radio stations that include WRCO in Richland Center, WCQM in Park Falls, and WRJN in Racine, Kenosha. Also on Saturday, the Wisconsin Badger football team is at Iowa. Pregame at 4:30 Saturday afternoon, and you can hear the game on the Civic Media app. So get that app downloaded, and you can listen to Badger football. Let's see. The Milwaukee Bucks play at Memphis tomorrow. The Badger volleyball team, the women, have a big match against Nebraska, second ranked in the nation. That's coming up Friday evening. All right, we'll unpack some more of the news and then our climate check not long after that, wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this Wednesday morning. When you're here, you're up north. I'm Pat Kreitlow.
I know you want to leave me, but I refuse to let you go. If I have to beg, plead for your sympathy, I don't mind, 'cause you mean that much to me. Ain't too proud to beg.
Of course, The Temptations with one of the many hits from hit-making machine. I have to go find it again. Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing. Let me find it here. Holland Dozier Holland. I couldn't get my H's and my D's right over here. Holland Dozier Holland, the production team of songwriters, had that tune and so many more. They and The Temptations intersect in today's history lesson coming up in just 30 minutes, said Pat, needing more coffee. The Up North News Daily Newsletter is out. You can sign up for it at upnorthnewswi.com. Just click subscribe in the top banner and learn about the alumni effect. What is it that's preventing the teaching shortage from getting even worse in many Wisconsin school districts? It's that more folks want to come back to their hometown. They may go away to college. They may even take a job or two, but then at some point decide that they are ready to come home and teach the kids there in their community, or maybe in another community in Wisconsin. So learn more about the alumni effect in our daily newsletter, upnorthnewswi.com. All right, as mentioned, there was this gathering in the nation's capital yesterday by Vice President Kamala Harris, talking to an overflow crowd near the White House, promising that she would fight for them every day, and urging voters to reject Donald Trump's efforts to sow division and fear. Let's give a little bit of a listen to some of her remarks from last night.
America, for too long we have been consumed with too much division, chaos, and mutual distrust. And it can be easy then to forget a simple truth. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. It is time to stop pointing fingers. We have to stop pointing fingers and start locking arms. It is time to turn the page on the drama and the conflict, the fear and division. It is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready to offer that leadership as the next President of the United States of America.
So there's a little bit of the vice president delivering remarks yesterday. Donald Trump, meanwhile, had some extremely low energy remarks that he made at Mar-a-Lago before he went to campaign in Pennsylvania. And I wanted to address specifically one comment of his where he's trying to claim credit for what's happening on Wall Street. Give a little bit of listen to former President Trump yesterday.
Destruction of our economy. Our economy is not, this is just, it's like a fake economy. Some of the best people on Wall Street are saying the economy is only good because they think, I don't want to say this because other people have said it. It's not me saying it, but they think Trump is going to get elected. That's the only reason our economy is good. That's the only reason the stock market is up.
I sometimes play these things just for Greg's reaction whether he puts his face in one hand or two hands, depending on the soundbite. In this particular case, we got both hands there at the very end. So let me carry.
Radio. I know dead radio is the nightmare of all programming directors, but
no, sometimes it does speak volumes. Yes, so
it's just that I mean, you're right. The energy, and then even the audience is like, it felt like there were 30 people there, and I'm not saying that to be a jerk either. It's just he's like, yeah, the economy is terrible. It's just,
but it has nothing to do with anticipation of him. Let's look at the record. On the day that Joe Biden was inaugurated, January 20th, 2021, okay, almost 4 years ago now, on the day he was inaugurated, the Dow Jones Industrial Average set a record high, 30,829. So by the time he was inaugurated, the Dow had already recovered its losses from the pandemic. Did it just bump along for the past 4 years, pining for Donald Trump to come back? It did not. There were other things to deal with. For example, there was inflation. The Dow set new record highs 45 times in 2021. But that was a very rapid recovery. And as a result, there was inflation. So in 2022, there were nearly no records at all on Wall Street, as the recovery from the pandemic included inflation that was seen in every country. It was the easiest thing to predict, and it wasn't fun. But steps were taken that gave the U.S. a better recovery than every other country on earth. Eric Hovde and others want to tell you that it caused inflation. It did not. It rescued this economy from what would have been a much longer, slower recovery. So it took nearly 2 years, but the Dow reached a new record high at the end of 2023, crossing 37,000. And now in 2024, Donald Trump has been a candidate the entire year. Did Wall Street just bump along this year, pining for Trump to come back? It did not. But you don't hear about it much, do you? I mean, if I asked you right now, how many times has the Dow Jones Industrial Average set a new record high in 2024? Would you even fathom a guess? Because I'll tell you, 45 times. 45 records this year. It reached 40,000, then 41,000, then 42,000, and 2 weeks ago, closing over 43,000. Again, it was just under 31,000 when Biden was inaugurated. Now, as they like to say on Wall Street, past performance is not indicative of future results. But for those who keep up this nonsense that Trump was somehow better on the economy and would be again, you've only missed 45 occasions this year alone to see how Wall Street is liking the idea that you make smart investments in the economy and that slashing government investment in Americans instead would be like eating your seed corn. It's penny wise, but extremely pound foolish. But that's Donald Trump trying to fool people into thinking that he'd be better on the economy, when the record doesn't reflect that in any way, shape, or form. When we come back, we're going to talk to Melissa Baldoff, and she's bringing along the superintendent from Northland Pines School District up north that for 20 years has been a leader in solar energy installation. And it's a great way to take care of the utility bills, reduce the burden on property taxpayers, and now with the Biden-Harris Inflation Reduction Act, it's been made even easier to create jobs and save money. And that's coming up next. You're Up North. Welcome back. It is 6:34. It's time for our weekly climate check with our friend Melissa Baldoff. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Doing well as myself, and looking forward to talking to somebody who truly is at the ground level with things that you can do in green energy sectors long before the Inflation Reduction Act came along. The Northland Pines School District has been a leader, going back almost 20 years here.
Yes, we know that there are so many things, really exciting things happening in communities around Wisconsin. And oftentimes really exciting things happening in our schools have been kind of pioneering some of what's possible when it comes to renewable energies, when it comes to helping to save money by thinking about what's possible when it comes to, installing solar panels or, thinking about how to be more energy efficient and then thinking about how to incorporate that into a curriculum. So I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about what's happening in one of the school districts here in Wisconsin, and to welcome our guest today, Scott Foster with the Northland Pines School District.
Hey, Scott, how are you? Thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Now, you said you've been with the district about 25 years, but not all of them as district administrator.
No, this is my 7th year as district administrator.
Okay. But obviously, if we go way back, and some of your material talks about this, that the school district there up north has been embracing solar for 20 some years now, and that this dates back to 2004, planning for a new high school that would have renewable energy. So, I mean, we know that this has been part of the conversation for a very long time. Can you talk about just the mindset up there going that far back that has always been embracing of renewable energy and why you chose to pursue that route?
Sure. We had the fortunate or unfortunate need to build a new high school, and our community supported that financially and by passing a referendum, and that created an opportunity. So I think our partners at Huffman Corporation and our local community said, what could we think about outside the box, and also what's planned for the long term? We came from a high school that did not last very long, only 35 years, so pretty sad for a building to last that long. So we need to do better, and it wasn't just nice classrooms. It was how do we impact our own environment and our own culture for a very long time. So when that building opened, we looked at wind energy, solar, geothermal, all the ways that we could impact long-term budgets, but also make our footprint as small as possible. We were ultimately recognized for the building of the school as one of the first, and maybe even the first, high school that was called LEED Gold certified, which means you met a lot of very high-end standards of creating a building that would be energy efficient. So maybe when the door opened, we didn't have solar immediately and we didn't have wind. We're right next to an airport, so wind got taken out very quickly. But we prepared a building that was energy efficient, built to make sure heating and cooling costs would be kept down. So I think sometimes that gets forgotten about, but also knowing that solar would be in our future, and making sure we had the plans so that it could be added when the time was right. And that's where the journey went to adding solar.
So you've got that at Northland Pines High School, the middle school. There was work done at Eagle River Elementary School, Land O'Lakes Elementary School, St. Germain Elementary School. So this is not just some kind of feel-good demonstration project. This has been a full-on commitment.
This has been a commitment for this and the use of energy, being really engaged as school board. We have a great leader of our buildings and ground, and Dave Bonin, community people that saw the long-term value. Probably what else is unique in our story, and I think it goes for other schools and businesses and other groups, is we have 3 different campuses within our district. We have 477 square miles. So we have 1,350 students, but we cover a lot of territory. And ironically, we have 3 different energy companies, and we have solar on all 3 campuses and done in 3 different ways. And I think that's been a unique thing when people call to talk about solar. They want to know our model. Well, we've had to do a model that works for best in each location and with each power company. And how things have changed. You mentioned, the change with giving schools and public people, the public entities, the opportunity for tax credits. That did not exist when the high school was done. So our situation in Eagle River, we had to partner with local or with some business owners or financial backing to get our solar here, so those tax credits could go to them and then work us into the solar plan. In Land O'Lakes, that power company is not interested in third-party partnerships and refused to let us do that. So we couldn't use the same model, and we had to switch to a model where we lease them the land and they put the solar on site and committed. It took years. Our board was very determined, and finally in St. Germain, the world has changed, and these opportunities for us to own our own system and also to put in batteries. So we've always discussed batteries on the Eagle River campus, but we didn't want that commitment until we knew it worked. So St. Germain, our newest installation, does have batteries and some new technology that will allow us to make better decisions of where we go with the Eagle River campus on either adding batteries at some point.
That's really exciting. And, you talked a little bit about the tax credits, which is, great to see that there's those, kind of upfront savings. But what kind of savings are you guys realizing, kind of year to year with this transition? And can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's a little harder. We have the exact data in Eagle River is there, but the way the partnership works is we're in the short term, we're basically covering energy costs with them. And then and that really has made a positive impact. Just like in many solar, the payback in that 10 to 12 year window is when we'll really see the cost savings back exactly. We're still in that partnership to pay for the system. St. Germain, Land O'Lakes is the simplest one. We get a monthly check. It is factored in how much energy it produces, but it's really a static cost that we get in return. So that one we monitor. It's got educational value. It is helping our taxpayers by getting money back. But that one, it's not is tied to the economics. The one in St. Germain is the one we're noticing the biggest difference right away. We built it differently. It is a ground mount system. It has ability to shed snow at a better way. Last winter did not have much snow up here, unfortunately. So some of the modeling has been a little tricky because we didn't get as much snow. Has ability to collect rays from the back and then the batteries. So one of the aha moments last week, Dave and I were talking, and the energy company called and said, "Hey, you haven't had any high demand use charges." And it was like, oh yeah, that's because our batteries are keeping us out of those high demand use changes. That's $1,400, $1,500 instantly that we're saving over and over and over. We're trying to measure the impact of the batteries, but the first couple months of our St. Germain solar, so we do give out our energy every month to our finance committee. So they've had years of data to look at, and that line went down so low that we kind of had to wait and see over time to make it notice that it's a difference. Because one of the pros and cons of solars with school a little bit is we don't have a ton of summer school classes. So you really want to, our high demand on the Eagle River campus with the big chillers is really our biggest issue with energy use. St. Germain and Land O'Lakes don't have as much summer school, so they don't see that use. So it's the school year now that we've been in school, September, October, we're starting to really notice that savings. So it's in the thousands of dollars over time. And with that system payback through the donations, the IRA, and the other aspects, our board should see the savings for years to come.
So you've outlined some of the systems that you have here, and I see mentioned as well carport solar, which I know we're seeing more of in some communities that essentially put these solar panels above parking lots to provide some shelter for the car. Is that something that is in the works as well, or is that just a discussion item for possible future wish lists?
It's in our long range planning. We have two options we're looking at. We're looking at outdoor learning areas where we would have, normally somebody might buy just a roof, open air learning outdoor classroom space. We have amazing outdoor spaces and land, including a school forest. If you're going to build those structure, why not put solar on top of it? There is some partnerships that go with that and grants available to do that, but also brings electricity to areas that maybe we would not be able to in some of our more rural settings up here in Eagle River area. So yeah, we have carports currently that were built a while ago that don't have them, but we've discussed the way they're situated of maybe that would be a next step there. And then the outdoor classroom, the pavilions and different spaces that have that is one of our partners on the St. Germain project did help, is providing those around the state. And we've seen some model of those like in Marathon City where we're looking at those opportunities as well.
And speaking of classrooms, another question I have is, what do the kids think about this? Is this interesting to them when they, kind of look around and see things that, look a little bit different about their school than a lot of the buildings they see or different places?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting thing will be over time because, since we've had solar on the Eagle River campus the longest, those students have only known schools should have solar. So as they go through life, they might find out that not every school has it, even if they go off to college. So I think our kids are intrigued by it. We do try to integrate it into some learning in our science, everyday life, classroom math, just even some science fair. Our Dave Bonin does do some work with our students as well. But I think it's kind of a great thing that eventually our kids may just see it as the norm instead of being unique and special.
Yeah, I have to think that, and maybe there's nothing but anecdotal evidence at this point, but you may have, now that it's been all these years that you've been involved, you may have graduates already who have become homeowners and are more amenable to, having solar at their homes, or maybe there have been graduates who've moved on to taking, courses that would lead them to be electricians or installers or anything like that. It just feels like you've opened up new worlds for your graduates.
Yeah, I think it's just such an amazing career opportunity. I think of one of our students that attended Soar Middle School, which is a project-based middle school, and then attended Northland Pines High School. So the mindset of thinking and project-based learning and mindset of environment, which Soar Middle School has a strong background in. He has gone on to electrical engineering, and really one of the focus areas he believes is these alternative energy sources and possibly solar directly. And as we have found through these projects, especially the early ones, the need for high quality installers and people to work in industry is a great demand because it's hard, just like anything. You got to have quality people supporting it and installing and problems troubleshooting. So I do think he's just one example. I think others are on the pathway as well. And I think that's going to be a real positive for, hopefully we can be part of the solution for future workers in this important industry in Wisconsin.
Sure sounds like it. And by the way, to engage in shameless self-promotion, when we resume Climate Check 3 weeks from today, Melissa's going to bring along a guest from the IBEW, a journeyman electrician, who's going to talk about all the many careers in there, Melissa. And it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity ahead, especially with the Inflation Reduction Act going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked before about how many great new jobs there are in the clean energy sector. And I just think it's so important to talk about those wonderful career paths and how many opportunities there are. So I'm looking forward to that.
All right. And Scott Foster, the superintendent up at Northland Pines there, thank you so much for giving us just a great history lesson on how solar continues to evolve for those who've embraced it in school districts like yours. Thanks for taking time with us today.
Thanks for having me. And on this, I think it's a great topic and a great place to save our taxpayers money, but also make the environment better and help our students learn.
All right. And Melissa, when I talk to you next week, you're going to have your political strategist hat on, and we'll talk about election results and things like that. But thanks for everything today.
Thank you.
We will be back with more after this. You're Up North. I don't know, Melissa. You might not want to do this today.
Why?
We're haunted.
Ooh.
We're digitally, technologically haunted with little gremlins and little bugs today, crashing things.
Well, that could be fun.
Yeah. You could maybe you're our Ghostbuster.
My aura will help.
Your aura, I like it.
Oh my God.
Oh, what's new out there?
It's warm outside.
Isn't it though? And windy. Holy cow!
It's not, well, it's a little windy here, I guess, but not too bad.
Doing anything special for Halloween?
I'm hoping to be able to hand out candy. I got to go buy some, though.
Okay. Popcorn balls, right?
Yeah, because those are cheap.
Just shiny apples. Here you go, kids.
What did I see? Somebody had a warm bowl of scrambled eggs, one handful each, kids. Whoa.
Saw somebody do that with a pot of pho. Two slurps per child, please.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's funny. Our trick-or-treating is tomorrow. It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Why have it on a Wednesday versus a Thursday? That is dumb.
Well, it's a Thursday. It's gonna be on a Thursday.
Oh yeah, tomorrow is Thursday. You guys, I have no concept of time right now.
No.
I'm just exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amen to that. Let's see.
All right. See you in a bit.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations present Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air in The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells.
'Twas on this day, 86 years ago, that Orson Welles broadcast a radio adaptation of H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. And as you could hear right there, it was mentioned from the very beginning. This is an adaptation of a book. This is the usual Mercury Radio Theater that's broadcast at this time, but then through use of fictitious news alerts and bulletins and fake interviews and people who didn't catch the 4 different times during the hour that they announced that it was fictitious, you had mass panic and hysteria in some parts of the United States. And then the media at the time really blew it up out of proportion, but it caused a scene. It caused a stir that we're still talking about all these years later in today's history lesson with our regular Wednesday friend, Melissa Kay from 97.5 WFHR and 105.5 WIRI. Melissa, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am delightful.
Do you? Of course you are.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, come on, duh. Do you feel like not at a network level with all the bells and whistles and everything, but do you feel like at a local radio station you could recreate something like that you could get the community riled up and thinking something was real, or is everybody too cynical and savvy now?
I would hesitate to do that. I would hate to do that because, our listeners trust us.
Yes.
So I wouldn't want to,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess I don't know. People are skeptical nowadays because so much is thrown at them. There's so much crazy out there that I personally read every headline and go, well, maybe.
Right? Everything
Until I
is like
see it
that.
6 other places and then go to a trusted news source and check it out.
Yes. By the way, Robin Tigerton jumping on early on Facebook to say good morning, Melissa. I hope you have a wonderful
Rob.
day. Always nice to have the listeners chiming in. Let's get to today's birthdays, and they include Grace Slick from Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship. Grace Slick is 85 years old today. I'm trying to figure out if she's made any appearances lately, and if she at age 85 could still belt this out. But then again, I would have done a better job of queuing it up to the part where she's singing, wouldn't I?
Okay, thank
Not
you.
pick-
Yeah.
How did you not pick Jane?
I don't know. Weren't you just telling me in the commercial break our brains are absolute mush right now, 6 days before
Also-
the election?
Also, Jane is like our outro song on the show at 10 a.m. So it's,
Oh, I suppose.
yeah,
Yeah, good point.
I don't want to confuse people.
So Grace Lick is 85. Eddie Holland is 84. Eddie Holland is part of the legendary Holland Dozier Holland production team. These three gentlemen wrote songs for Motown from 1962 to 1967. We played one earlier by the Temptations, but there was Baby Love by the Supremes, Stop in the Name of Love, You Keep Me Hanging On, Heat Wave, How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You, Standing in the Shadows of Love. Just an absolute hit factory from people like Eddie Holland, who is 84 years old today. Timothy B. Schmidt of the Eagles is 77.
Very mellow today.
Isn't it? Yeah, we need that. And I jumped ahead. I mentioned Eddie Holland writing songs for the Temptations. Otis Williams from the Temptations is 83 years old today. The Fonz, Henry Winkler, is 79 today.
Thumbs up, baby.
And was recently in Milwaukee, visited the Fonz, the bronze Fonz statue there in Milwaukee. Ivanka Trump is 43. This is the anniversary of the birth of our second president, John Adams. The number one song this day in 1982 was by a new Australian band on the scene, Men at Work.
Good day, everybody. This is Men at Work with their hit single, Who Can It Be Now?
It says here it was the group's first number one hit, but I'm pretty sure wasn't the Land Down Under was what was released first and must not have gone to number one, near as I can tell. I don't have
Yes,
the
Pat.
full
That's exactly
notes.
right. You got it right. Yep.
Okay,
You got
thank
it right there, mate.
Thank you, mate.
This band is crackers. I love them. I love them. We should play them all day.
How did I not know you could do such a good Aussie accent?
You never asked. You never asked.
We're gonna. I sense we're about to have a staffing change here at Up North News Radio. We're about to add an Australian intern. So stick around for
You're
that.
gonna pay me. You're gonna pay me big time.
Like I said, we're going to have to do some workshopping on the character development. On this day in 1987, George Michael, having left Wham, released his first solo album. Here's the title track. The album Faith was a hit machine with I Want Your Sex, Father Figure, the title track. Went to number one in the U.S. and won the Grammy for Album of the Year. Very short list on the National Day calendar today. It's National Publicist Day. It's National Checklist Day. Check. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I have so many checklists.
And so many checklists. And one that I should be boycotting, but I read these things. It's National Candy Corn Day.
It's not that our station loves candy corn, so we give him all the candy corn. And kind of all the fun about it too.
And at some point I'll talk to my daughters today and tell the same joke I've told since they were little girls, that all of the candy corn that was ever made was made in 1917. And, a few of them get eaten, the rest get collected and just redistributed the next year. And when they were little girls, they thought it was really funny.
Do you give credit to Lewis Black when you say that?
No, did he steal that from me?
Oh, sure. Yeah. You know what, Pat? Yes, he did.
I kind of figured. I've been saying it long before Lewis Black came on the scene. Melissa Kay, great to have you here from 97.5 WFHR, 105.5 WIR in Wisconsin Rapids. You have a wonderful day
here.
And a great Halloween. All
Happy
right.
Halloween.
State Senator Chris Larson and reporter Elizabeth Montemurro join us in the second hour of Up North News Radio next on the Civic Media Radio Network. So seriously, I have to go looking up a Lewis Black joke and find out when he started telling it. I like
You
that,
might have
Greg calling me out on the jokes here. I don't know, man. Okay, I see
Have
how
a
this
good
is going to
day,
go.
guys.
Thanks,
Pat, are you
Melissa.
going to do Pat, you should do an Australian accent too in the next hour, just the whole time.
Oh no, I can't. You've heard me just try to read song titles. You didn't laugh at me today when I read the song title "I Want Your Sex." Because I read that in such a such a 60-year-old guy way.
If you could see my eyes when you read it, I was like, oh.
I had so much fun.
Okay, bye, Melissa.
Bye, Melissa.
How's Brittany today?
Good. How are you?
Oh, very good. Very good.
Good.
I like the purpley headphones.
Thanks.
What kind are they?
I don't know. Cheap ones.
Cheap ones. As long as they work.
Yep. And they look good.
That's right. All right. Here we go.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wissota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
And welcome back to the second hour of Up North News Radio on this Wednesday morning, October 30th. 6 days to go until Election Day. Nice to have you along. Coming up this hour, State Senator Chris Larson is going to join us for our homeroom segment where we talk about public education, the opportunities, the threats, and one of the more recent ones deals with reading and literacy programs, new programs that were required, put in place by the Republican-controlled legislature, and then when it came time to fund them, they said, nah. So we'll get an update on what's happening with that. Up North News reporter Elizabeth Montemurro joins us in a couple of moments as well. She has been talking to candidates and VIPs crisscrossing Wisconsin in this final week of the campaign. But first, it is time for a true Halloween tale, the trick-or-treat comparison that is inevitable when you have temperatures that start out in the 70s the day before Halloween, but we're talking about snowflakes and cold air and wet rain by the time the kids are actually out trick-or-treating. Meteorologist Brittany Merlot has the details. Brittany, I know this is no fun to deliver, but it is what it is.
It is what it is, I guess, right? Oh my gosh, we're going from record high warm temperatures yesterday, and even this morning we're hitting record warm overnight lows. That's hard to say. It's a tongue twister. So it's the warmest overnight that we have had on this day so far. I mean, you can feel it. It's kind of eerie. You could just walk outside with no coat on, and it's almost Halloween. So after that, we're just kind of hover here right now. We're in the upper 60s to low 70s. We'll spike a few degrees, maybe low 70s to mid 70s for the afternoon. And then we start to drop after that. That's, of course, as the rain rolls in, but the potential for some storms into southwestern parts of the state from Madison and westward. You could see some hail, damaging wind gusts, and honestly, tornadoes aren't even ruled out today. So it's a lot of wild weather. I mean, we're taking a 30-degree drop from yesterday, today's kind of vibe, through tomorrow. So a big difference in air masses slamming in together. You're going to get some heavy rain as well, especially into portions of central Wisconsin. I mean, we're looking at an excess of 2 inches possibly. That could create some flash flooding. And then after all of this, we're going to see the rain really ramp up this afternoon into the evening, continuing overnight. It does look in the southern parts of the state to wind down by tomorrow afternoon. But up north, that's not the case. That's when it's going to really start to be flipping into some snowfall and accumulating as well. So we're looking at a wintry mix into northwest parts of the state by overnight, early tomorrow morning. And then it flips to all snow throughout the morning and potentially into the afternoon, and maybe even flying still into the evening. Some of these accumulations could be around 2 to 5 inches, maybe 6 inches or more towards Duluth. It's going to be a lake effect snow machine on top of this system exiting and that cold, blustery wind blasting in. Today, winds are going to be gusting up to 40 miles per hour out of the south, keeping us warm. But by tomorrow, especially in the afternoon and evening, kids out trick-or-treating are going to feel it. It is going to be blustery, moving out of the north, gusting up to 45 miles per hour. So a dreaded, spooky forecast for trick-or-treating. Bundle up. Ugh, it's icky.
Yeah, but although, I mean, look, we've been kind of spoiled, and the fact of the matter is, we talk about election day all the time, but we forget that means it's November. It's going to be November here, and this is November weather that's going to come, like it or not. Did I ever tell you about the Halloween blizzard of 1991? Oh, wait.
Oh,
I did
God,
that
no, run
yesterday.
away.
Sorry. Quickly from Rob in Tigerton, good morning. It's cloudy and a summer like 70 degrees. Yesterday, he was in Gillette and got to meet up with Kristen at a campaign event. Got a hat from her that I wear proudly. I took pictures of the people who leased my family's property, combining the corn. We talked about War of the Worlds in the last segment. He said he remembers his dad and uncles talking about when it was on the radio and they had the neighbor kids over, and the neighbor kids were so scared they had to run to get them home just in case of, aliens, things like that. And he finally notes you've got to be weather savvy later today.
You sure
Well
do.
said.
I mean,
You
it's
got to be
weird.
weather savvy and drink that water.
Yes, Greg. Just be aware. Brittany, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Like I said, 6 days until the election. Voting is already underway. Later this morning, we'll get the latest numbers that should indicate that through yesterday, more than 1 million of you have already voted, myself included, by either mailing your absentee ballots in or in-person early voting, which is happening all around you right now. Be in touch with your local clerk's office to learn more, or check out the voting guides at upnorthnewswi.com or Dan Schaefer's 2024 voter guide at civicmedia.us. This election campaign in such a swing state, such a closely divided state, can't help but bring in the candidates, the surrogates, the celebrities, the fans, and all the reporters who cover them, including Up North News reporter Elizabeth Montemurro, who joins us now to tell us more about all the folks that you're meeting out and about. Many of them real, some of them a little on the fictitious side for those of you who might be fans of Olivia Pope. Details in a minute. Elizabeth, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Hanging in there, Pat. We're 6 days out.
Yeah, and like I said, a lot of different names coming through. We were talking about the cast of The West Wing recently. Was in the Waukesha, Milwaukee area, and I mean, it not only attracted a crowd, but it was one of our more popular social media posts of the past week. And then there's another political show out there, or that had been out there, that was really popular in its day, and one of its stars has been busy campaigning in swing states like Wisconsin.
That's right. For any Scandal fans, Kerry Washington made a campaign stop in Milwaukee over the weekend. She stopped at a field office here in Milwaukee on the northwest side. And just like the cast of The West Wing, was just there to talk to voters and volunteers. And of course, bring the snacks, because those volunteers are logging some long hours at this point in the campaign, encouraging folks to get out and vote. But I think what was really interesting, as Kerry Washington was there to encourage volunteers, give them a little bit of motivation as we're nearing the final days of the campaign, is that she's like, I'm a celebrity, but I'm not here for me.
No, she's not. So let's listen to a bit from what Kerry Washington had to say to volunteers.
I'm not here as a celebrity. I'm here as an American. I'm here as a granddaughter of an immigrant. I'm here as a mother. I'm here as a union member. I'm here as a daughter. I'm here because I love my country, and I'm never going to silence myself because of what I do for a living. I'm not here to tell people what to do because I'm Kerry Washington. I'm not here because I played a character, Olivia Pope, on television. Because people always say, like, Olivia Pope, you have to fix this. Like, Olivia Pope, save us in this moment. But actually, Olivia Pope can't vote. She can't make phone calls. She can't knock on doors. She doesn't have the power that every single person living in Wisconsin has right now to really make a difference in this world. So I'm really here to say, you guys are so much more important than me. And I want people to know that in this celebrity-driven culture, that I'm not here for me. I'm here for you.
Exactly. And I can't help but note that campaigns get so busy that sometimes one person in a campaign office needs to say to somebody else, stop talking over there, we're doing an interview. But, it is what it is. But it was, and I like that. It sounds cliche, but, when these celebrities, surrogates drop in, when they're bringing the box of donuts, when they're bringing the I don't know what she had in those bags there, if they were cookies or donuts or whatever, you bring in the pizza. I mean, it makes a connection. It just says, you're not there just for you. You give a damn about the volunteers too. And that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought so. Just like the cast of The West Wing a week and a half ago, they walked in with trays of donuts too. I was like, oh, it's a good move. May I have one?
Yeah, right. So, of course, the candidates are a big part of it as well. And Tammy Baldwin is on her own bus tour right now.
She is. She started a statewide bus tour, I believe 5 days long, this past weekend. And I had a chance to catch up with her on one of the stops yesterday at Apple Holler in Racine County. It was just a beautiful fall day to be out campaigning, maybe a little too warm for the beautiful fall setting that we had. But on this stop, Tammy was speaking with union members, mostly from United Food Service, food and commercial workers, and just asking people for their vote. She said, I believe it's really important to be here to ask people, will you support me? Because people often forget that.
Yeah, no, you have to actually make the ask. Don't just say, oh, I did all this, I did all that. You have to ask. And, she went on to say, sometimes you need to explain to one another why you're voting the way you do. Let's listen to Senator Baldwin on that.
I work on issues around wellness, work, and water. Those are areas that we can all relate to. You need your help. You need a good job to get ahead. And we need natural resources that we celebrate as Wisconsinites. We're a state on two Great Lakes. The mighty Mississippi is our west coast, and we care about our drinking water and the safety of the drinking water. And I fight a lot for that. So my why is to make sure that Wisconsin has somebody who's fighting every day for them, not somebody who insults them.
No, I think we know who she's talking about there. And finally, you're there in southeast Wisconsin, and that included the 1st congressional district. We haven't talked much about the race there against incumbent Republican Brian Stile, but former congressman, former legislator Peter Barca is the candidate there.
There's a lot of talk in campaigns today about lowering costs, saving people money. But let's face it, healthcare is one of our most important values. It's the most important thing, and it's also the most expensive. And so if you want to lower costs, you'll do what was achieved in the Inflation Reduction Act, which was to make sure that we negotiated drug prices. And 152,000 Wisconsinites benefited from the first 10 drugs that were in fact included in that negotiation. So I would say healthcare is one of the most important issues people should be mindful of because it is on the ballot in so many different ways.
The thing is, Elizabeth, he contrasts himself with Brian Stile. How did Brian Stile do on the Inflation Reduction Act and matters that would have helped with health care?
Well, just like every other Republican in Congress, he voted against it.
That's right. And it just needed that little refresher, which Peter Barca was providing as well. Elizabeth Montemurro, thank you so much for, covering so many different things. We appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
When we come back, we'll talk about something Ron Johnson had to say about voter fraud and where does it really exist. That's coming up next. You're Up North. All right, there we go. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thanks. See you soon.
Yep, see ya. Bye.
When the truth is found to be lies, and all the
Ray Slick, happy birthday, 85 years old today. Senator Chris Larson from the Wisconsin Legislature joins us in about 15 minutes here to talk about reading and literacy programs and the Republicans in the legislature who mandated it but now refuse to fund it. That and much more ground we'll cover coming up in our second half hour here. But first, I wanted to start by mentioning that we have to remind you that Ron Johnson is one of Wisconsin's senators and that Eric Hovde is currently running to be essentially Ron Johnson's mini-me, so that we have two rich white guys who think that government should be run like a business and are willing to say or do pretty much anything to get into office. We certainly saw that with Ron Johnson a couple of years back when, again, despite being behind in polling and certainly behind in, shall we say, public approval, was willing to run or have billionaires on his behalf run enough wildly racist commercials to drag him across the finish line. And so we still have him. Will we have Eric Hovde in place of Tammy Baldwin? Ron Johnson certainly is hoping so and is already putting out messages like this one yesterday on Twitter. Ron Johnson writes, Democrats oppose all efforts to secure elections. In other words, they want to make it easy to cheat, which means they want to cheat. No surprise, cheating is being exposed. Question is, how much cheating will they get away with? Well, what does he mean by that when he says cheating is being exposed? Well, he points to a Donald Trump tweet about how in York County, Pennsylvania, they're dealing with potentially thousands of fraudulent voter registration forms and mail-in ballot applications from a third-party group that came in. The thing that Donald Trump's not telling you, the thing that Ron Johnson's not telling you, is that that third-party group is likely led by somebody by the name of Scott Pressler, who has been a tireless advocate for Donald Trump and for doing things that might seem a little underhanded, and he may have finally been caught helping to put thousands of potentially fraudulent ballots out there, and either by design or by design to get caught so that you create this headline that there's voter fraud out there, so that Donald Trump can tweet about it, so that Ron Johnson can tweet about it, because apparently Ron Johnson thinks that you forgot that he was in on Trump's plan to circumvent the election. He was ready to be a mule. He was ready to take fraudulent ballots from fake electors in Wisconsin to Mike Pence on the floor of the Senate. He says he didn't know anything about it. The investigation later proved otherwise, that he had heard indeed what other Trump supporters from Wisconsin were planning to do. He just hopes that you forgot about it. So they say that there's voter fraud out there. Turns out we did find some. It comes from northern Minnesota, where a woman is facing felony charges because of the voter fraud that we have discovered. She's a 50-year-old woman, and she probably is not a listener to this program, so she probably didn't hear one of our earlier segments where a local clerk in Eau Claire talks about all the safeguards that are in place for preventing duplicate voting. Because yes, they do monitor death records, and if someone has died before Election Day, even if an absentee ballot was sent to that person and returned, it gets pulled. The vote does not count from dead people on Election Day. So back to northern Minnesota. Itasca County did mail a ballot to a woman named Rose Javerina on September 20th, and they got the ballot back on October 7th. But someone in the office noticed that Rose Javerina's signature looked an awful lot like her daughter's handwriting as the witness. And her daughter's signature on her own ballot looked a lot like her mother's signature as the witness. By then, of course, it was confirmed that Rose had died on August 31st. And a check of the 4 signatures across the 2 ballot envelopes all were mighty similar to the daughter's signature as on file with her driver's license. So someone from the sheriff's office had a talk with the daughter, 50-year-old Danielle Miller, and she explained what's at the base of this alleged voter fraud. She said, you see, her mother, Rose, was an avid Donald Trump supporter and wanted to vote for Trump, but died before getting the chance. So Danielle Miller, allegedly, filled out her mom's ballot and forged her signature and forged her mother's signature as the witness on her own ballot. And Danielle Miller will now make her first court appearance on felony voter fraud charges on December 4th. So, yes, Ron Johnson, the voter fraud is out there. The cheating is out there. It's just that in story after story after story after story, it appears the cheating is coming from one particular side of the aisle, those who support Donald Trump. Those who support Donald Trump tend to have some of these ethical lapses. The most recent example will be seen today in Mississippi, or in Wisconsin, rather, where Donald Trump is going to be crisscrossing several states, and he is scheduled to appear in Green Bay with Brett Favre, the former Packer quarterback. The headline in the Associated Press perhaps says it best: Trump will campaign in Wisconsin with Brett Favre, who's linked to a Mississippi welfare scandal. You notice Hall of Fame quarterback isn't in there anymore. He was an NFL MVP 3 times. He was a Super Bowl champion. But the 55-year-old Favre, while not facing criminal charges, is one of more than 36 people at the center of a welfare scandal. Favre has repaid just over $1 million he received in speaking funds that had been provided through what was supposed to be federal welfare funds that were sent to Mississippi. The scandal is that although Mississippi is one of the poorest states in the union and has been for decades, only a fraction of the federal money designed to go to welfare has gone to needy families. You always hear about, welfare fraud and that it's people who are, living lavish lifestyles and, making money off of government checks. It wasn't happening for the poor families of Mississippi. It was happening to powerful people who were siphoning the money off and wasting it. Tens of millions of dollars were wasted, including some that went toward a University of Southern Mississippi volleyball arena that Brett Favre had been leading the fundraising efforts for. Now, again, he was not part of the group that necessarily knew of the welfare fraud. He's had to pay back the money once it was learned that that money was connected to that scheme. He continues to deny any wrongdoing. He continues to support Donald Trump. They will be campaigning together to no one's surprise. Senator Chris Larson next. You're up north. Hey, Chris, how we doing?
Good. How are you?
We're doing all right, thanks. Where are you off to now?
Heading. I'm going to the Capitol real quick, and then off to help Sarah Kietsky.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. We've got about 3 minutes left in this break here, and looks like you're all good to go. So I'll just tuck you back in the waiting room and come get you near the end of the commercial break.
Sounds good. Perfect.
See you all right. See you in a bit. This is usually not the song we would pick for our homeroom segment to talk about public education in Wisconsin. It's one of the rare times where the certain part of the lyric actually fits about a brick in the wall, because you may as well be talking to a brick wall when it comes to some of the ways that our state government should be supporting public education, but is not, for many reasons that we've covered here, one of the most recent of which is mandating a new reading and literacy program and then refusing to fund it, part of the political games that are being played in the state legislature. And here to talk about that and so many other related topics is State Senator Chris Larson from Milwaukee. Senator Larson, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Pat?
I'm very good, thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't start, however, talking about one of our colleagues, Rob Coles, and his announcement the other day that he would be voting for Vice President Kamala Harris. Coles is the longest-serving legislator currently, certainly the longest-serving Republican. I served with him 15 years ago. You serve with him now. Between his announcement and then that of the Republican mayor of Waukesha, what does that tell you about some of the Republicans that you worked with, that I've worked with, and where this election seems to be going?
Yeah, it's I mean, with what's not surprising is that he feels this way. Honestly, I think one of the perks of being elected and being a little bit younger is that some of the older folks in the Senate, when they think they're whispering, you usually hear most of what they're saying. And a lot of these guys have detested Donald Trump from the beginning, right? The same way the rest of us see how he's a con artist, how he is not, he's only interested in himself. And then in the latest way, since 2020, how it's very clear that he's willing to overthrow democracy and willing to overthrow every idea that is America. What's exciting about it, what's new, is finally you actually have a Republican willing to say it into a microphone, into the public, and to be able to say what everyone else knows, that the line was crossed long ago. And for Rob specifically, Trump messing around with Nazi stuff and quoting Hitler and saying he wanted Hitler's generals was too much for him, as it should be too much for anybody. I think sometimes we get this idea that, okay, there's two restaurants open at the food court, they must both be great, but taking a step back, there's one that is serving broken glass and poison, and there's one that's serving nourishing meals, right? And I think it becomes pretty clear once you're in it long enough, like Rob is.
Yeah, and look, what's in the nourishing meal may not be your favorite food, but again, the alternative is broken glass, and that some people are finally willing to speak out about it. And it underscores a point that I've been making for years. And again, I've been out of the legislature for a long time, but that there are good people from both parties who serve in there, just as there are people from both parties that, frankly, are a pain in the arse to deal with. And some of them have been in charge for a very long time. So that takes us to where we are with public education. And right now, folks are mostly talking about all the referendums. And as we've said repeatedly on this program, the smart way to go would be to say yes to a referendum if it's in your area, and no to any of the legislators who created the conditions that have led to all these referendums. So while we've stressed that a lot, we haven't really gotten into the new literacy program requirement, which, as I understand, not every Democrat was necessarily fond of the way that these literacy programs would work. But it's made even worse by Republicans then saying, well, we're not going to fund this. Can you explain what it is that your Republican colleagues are telling you as far as why they required a literacy program but now won't fund it?
Yeah, what's interesting is this is a bill that's it's taken a while for them to actually get it passed, more than one session. I was opposed to it because of the specific branding that they wanted to move forward. This is a reiteration of a fight that had happened in the 80s under the first George W. Bush, where they were pushing specific products out of Texas as these miracle cures for literacy. The reality is what it takes to be able to teach a child to read is quality attention and time by a skilled teacher who knows what they're doing. And there is no cheap way to do it, right? This isn't like you play baby Einstein and then 5 years later your kid is a genius and can read at an 8th grade level when they're in kindergarten. It is that dedicated attention. And so finally they were able to add some dollars into it, as Patty, as you know, and people who pay close attention to state government. There's all kinds of great ideas of what legislators want to force other governments to do, but there always tends to be a shortage of dollars to actually fund them to do it. And so we drew the line and said, you at least have to put in some money. That gained bipartisan support, enough for the governor to sign it. And then wouldn't you know, once it passed, the Republicans in the Joint Finance Committee, Dewey Strobel specifically, who sits on that committee, as well as Joan Ballweg, are blocking the dollars from actually being spent. So you have this mandate to do a specific literacy program within these public schools, but then the dollars to hire literacy coaches and actual dedicated professionals, they're sitting on those dollars. And if that's not bad enough, Pat, I'm sure you know this, but Dewey Strobel is running in the district immediately north of mine in north of Milwaukee County. And he is bragging about the literacy program that he ushered through, that he voted for, and saying how great this is, while at the same time, he is the chair of the committee that is blocking the money from actually being spent. So trying to take credit for something that he is literally blocking at the exact same time. There's a lot of hypocrisy in politics, but I don't know if you can top that one on a local basis.
It really is difficult to top doing something the way that they appear to be doing it. The inside baseball part of it, and folks, don't let me lose you in here, but there is that line item veto that governors have. Governors, whether Republican or Democrat, can choose to veto certain parts of certain bills. If Republicans, in this case, in the legislature, don't like the line item vetoes, they can vote to override it if they have the votes. If they don't have the votes, they can't. It's baked into the process. It's legal. It gets to work. So Governor Evers has done some line item vetoes in this literacy bill, just as he did with the bill to clean up PFAS out of the drinking water, just as he did for the money that was supposed to go to the Chippewa Valley for their healthcare emergency after 2 hospitals closed. And Chris, after months of talking about this, I'm still trying to figure out how Republicans justify saying, well, we're not going to release the money for these things because we don't like the line item vetoes that Governor Evers put in all of these bills.
Yeah, I mean, talk about an inability to be able to work across the aisle, which I think is one of the biggest criticisms that gets put out there by folks who maybe aren't paying attention to the close details, but they think, well, wait a second, you guys should be able to figure out some of these things and work together. But in these cases, they are taking their ball and going home. They're refusing to expend the dollars. I mean, you bring up the PFAS stuff, and I'm sure your listeners are astute enough to know what PFAS are and the forever chemicals that are flowing in our water with high concentrations in different parts of the state. The legislature begrudgingly moved forward on trying to do something with PFAS. Now, the really wild part about this one is what Republicans are trying to hold over from the dollars being spent. They want to give immunity to the polluters. They want to be able to say, well, if you give these dollars, it's the equivalent of like taking a settlement check from an insurance company that you can, if you take this, pennies on a dollar for the damages, then you can't hold them liable in the future, which, as we're learning more and more, PFAS are unfortunately part of a lot of our ecosystems because they're forever chemicals. And the more we're learning, the more it's going to be essential to hold these polluting companies accountable because a lot of them knew it. Republicans, of course, are stepping into the fray and saying, well, let's make sure you can never hold them accountable for the pollution they caused you and your children. That's why they're sitting on these dollars in the Joint Finance Committee, and why we can't address one of the biggest health crises in America.
It is really telling that they're in all of those instances trying to blame Governor Evers, saying that, he's the one that won't meet us. But again, he fulfilled his part of the law. He has the right to, veto portions of these bills and in many cases to offer local governments more flexibility in how they do things. So at this point, it's not a matter of blaming Governor Evers. It sounds more like, an attempt at extortion. But again, they're willing to not fund these programs, reading and water and healthcare. They're willing to sit with the water full of chemicals to try to extort some more concessions out of the governor. Obviously, we're not going to see any progress on this between now and when the legislature begins to take up the next budget in January. What's your hope, Senator Larson, about how things might be better come January, February, when you guys start working on the next 2-year state budget?
Yeah, I mean, look, we finally have fairer maps in the state of Wisconsin, which, I think a lot of people recognize. I realize sometimes we get in the political talk. I'm sure your listeners know what that means. When I say that to the average person, they're saying, wait a second, did we finally get the UP? We got new maps in Wisconsin. It just means that the district lines have shifted in a way that's fairer. So votes are actually more reflective of the will of the people. The votes of people are going to reflect a greater degree in how their elected officials at the state level act in the Assembly and the Senate. That's why we have the Assembly as a jump ball in the state of Wisconsin. There's competitive seats all over the place. If you have a state rep, if they're not in their own competitive district, they're out helping. That's where I'm going right now. If you can hear me driving in the background to go help in a competitive district north of Dane County in the 14th for Sarah Kietsky. And this is going to change it. There will be more Democrats elected this cycle than we probably had in 12 years because we have more Democrats running in more districts than we've had this in the 2000s, so in the last 24 years. And those folks are on the ground telling the story of exactly what's been going on at the Capitol and how we need to fund public education, how we need to give women autonomy over their own bodies, and how we need to make sure that healthcare is a right and not a privilege to be extorted, and more. So it's going to change the dynamics. And as you know, this happened right after you left the legislature, Pat. There was a rule that went down that they didn't even want us bowling with each other, Republicans and Democrats, because, gosh, you might actually get to like one another and actually get bills passed that help the people on a nonpartisan basis. So we can finally put that to an end. I don't know how soon we'll get our bowling shoes on.
Perhaps. And while we wait for him to jump to the next tower here, I want to note that Chris Hambuck-Boyle put it on Facebook. Unfunded mandates for public schools force them to go to referendums across the state. So, and Chris's signal is back with us now. It's that, again, these endless referendums, perhaps something that can be addressed, because you will have a multi-billion-dollar surplus once again to work with. Yep. And I say that out of a sense, Chris, of insane jealousy, looking back at the 2009 budget that we had to put through at the start of the Great Recession with a $6 billion shortfall. So needless to say, I'm wishing you all the best in putting that surplus to work better than has happened the past two budget cycles.
Yeah, no, having the surplus is huge, in being able to decide what priorities we're going to spend it on, right? Because the argument has always been we don't have the funds to be able to fund K-12 public education, that higher education is not a priority. Sorry, we have to cut funds there. Issue after issue, local governments, local roads, all of these things. But now we're actually going to be able to invest in public education. You mentioned the referendums. We have a record number of referendums up this cycle. 243 up this year alone. Every municipality in my Senate district has had a referendum or is having one this year. And your listeners probably know already that if they haven't had a referendum, they will soon. If they've had one already, they're probably going to have another one in the next 3 to 4 years. And this is a result of Scott Walker's budgeting that restricts locals from being able to raise the revenue on their own, while the state government has hoarded all of this cash. And putting that in real sense, the dollars of what a child was worth in the state perspective on a per pupil basis is less now than it was when Scott Walker came into office in 2011. So if you think about that, right, a child...
It says a lot about their priorities. Yeah, exactly. Senator Chris Larson, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Safe travels. We'll talk again after the election. Take care.
Sounds good. Thanks, Pat. Let's go win.
You bet. Todd Allbaugh coming up next. You're Up North. All right, there. We're clear and break. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Mr. Allbaugh.
Good morning, Mr. Kreitlow, Mr. Bach. How the heck are you?
Look at that. Well, look at this fancy little backdrop you got here.
We're at the plush Super 8 of Ossie and Osseo.
Ooh. Man,
Are you doing the hit for the BBC too?
Allegedly, yes.
Mine was supposed to be like 20 minutes ago, and then at 6 o'clock they hit me up and said, yeah, that's actually going to be postponed until 9.
Yeah, they had me confirmed for the morning after the election, and then said, well, let's stay loose on that. Like, okay, fine, whatever. So when Luke mentioned this afternoon, I'm like, yeah, I'll believe it when it happens. So
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Tony. If it wouldn't have been raining, I thought about doing outside, but no, it's kind of nasty right now.
It is definitely very windy out there. All righty. Let's see. You see, yeah, that's right, Tony. Brits are so rude. Unlike the Aussies, right, Greg?
You got that right. We're the kindest people in the world. When we say you're going to be on at 6 o'clock, you're going to be on 6 o'clock. 9 o'clock, you got things to do. You got work. You got to take care of the kids, take them to school.
I once went to Australia. I looked outside, and there was a dingo eating my Pringle. Right there.
And I'm turning this off. Goodbye.
Wow. Okay. Let's see you in 25 seconds. Well, it's not really a bus stop, but it's as close as I could come up with on a bus tour. Maybe I should have went with Magic Bus. I don't know.
I like it. I like it.
I like how you enter the show and just immediately undercut yourself with regret and
I
self-deprecation.
did. I'm like, this really isn't about a bus tour, but I got something in there related to a bus.
Yeah.
Todd's on a bus.
Well, not on a bus proper right now. We're in the plush Super 8 in Osseo, but yeah, we do have a bus. We're riding from locale to locale, and my voice is going too. Oh gosh,
I can hear that, dude. Clearly,
Yeah.
there must be a lot that makes Wisconsin great for you to talk
There
about
is.
on what it is that makes Wisconsin so wonderful.
Yeah, we're going around the state, 6 cities in 6 days. I've got my Wonder State coffee right here in my hot little hands. That's where we were yesterday in beautiful Viroqua, Wisconsin, in the Driftless in southwest Wisconsin. Stopped in there, had TJ, one of the owners of Wonder State, had one of the local people from Community Radio, WDRT, there in Viroqua, and also talked to Lee Rosh, of course, longtime involved at Western Wisconsin Technical College, and now is working for a pro-democracy institute to help kind of spread the love and help people understand the truth about voting. So, and then Trygve Olson, our friend from the Lincoln Project, native of River Falls, is along, and Reed Galen, one of the co-founders of the Lincoln Project and now president of the union. So the union picked up the tab for the bus. So that was very nice of them. So because as we were loading in, the bus driver said, "You usually put all of this in your truck?" He said, "That's why there's only room for Trygve and I, and we do these things." or the case, or Jane.
I always want a bus.
Yes,
Right,
yes. I don't think that's a bad demand at all, and I love these bus tours. I love your tours around Wisconsin, getting the listeners more involved and allowing them even more of a say and get more local flavor, especially in these days prior to an election. That you're not a candidate, you're not a campaign, you're not an interest group. You're just a couple of chuckleheads with microphones who want to talk about the positive things about Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So let me ask it this way.
Sure, please.
What's the best case scenario coming out of this election? Let's not have anybody be fooled. Best case scenario is not some kind of like liberal fever dream where everything on Bernie Sanders' wish list is going to come true. That's never been the goal, but there is a goal that if everything on a Donald Trump wish list comes true, things ain't going to be so good about this. So what in your mind is a good or best case scenario coming out of this election?
Well, I think maybe one of the underreported stories, and I'll put myself in the guilty category of this, is not talking about what could happen in the state legislature. And today we're going to, speaking of a local, Pat, we're going to be at the beautiful Norski Nook here in Osseo, having pie and coffee and talking to folks. That's where we're doing the show from today.
Hey, Greg, be careful. With all that drool coming out of both of us, we're going to electrocute ourselves if we step in this.
I want to be on a bus tour.
I want some
next
pie.
time, come on along.
Right.
But Jody Emerson, State Representative Jody Emerson, is going to be here. We're going to be talking about at 1 o'clock and talking about these very important state legislative races. So, Pat, to answer your question, I think the best case scenario is, maybe we get a split in the legislature where the Democrats control the Assembly and the Republicans barely control the Senate, and Tony Evers in the executive office. And that will force maybe listening to people and having to actually work together to get something done that is more centrist, which I think is in the best interest of voters. So going to be talking about that. Also, we have Craig Gilbert from former journalist in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel talking about the new Marquette Law School poll, which will be released around noon, and we'll talk to Craig about 12:30. And then we have who else do we have? Oh, we have Elise Jordan from MSNBC's Morning Joe, a friend of Trygve Olsen. She'll be on at 1:30. So talking about all of that today. But I think as we're out here on the road, Pat, two things strike me. One, being up here away from the Madison media market, the vitriol, the hatred, the negativity, the sickness of the Republican ads, even at the state assembly level. Mike Hipsch's son, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Totally disgusting ad against State Representative Steve Doyle of the La Crosse area that's transphobic, hateful, and spiteful. I think that the big question here is what does this issue they're ginning up in these ads, how does that affect the U.S. Senate race? How does that affect down ballot races in the state assembly? At the end of the day, I put my hope and trust in Wisconsin, that our community is what binds us together, and people are going to vote for people who support our local schools, our communities, our ag producers.
I hope so. But like I said earlier this hour, I've also seen Ron Johnson be dragged across the finish line by some of the most disgusting ads out there that just enough people buy into.
And really quickly, if you're someone who's on the fence, a person who's maybe leaning towards voting Democratic, please vote today. Please vote early, or at least vote on Election Day proper. Don't vote third party. Don't vote Jill Stein. A vote for third party or Jill Stein in quote unquote protest over the Palestinian issues or whatever, that is a vote for Trumpism. That is a vote for hate. All Trump will do is put Bibi Netanyahu and tell him to do whatever the hell you want. So I'm not condoning everything, but if you think that Trump is going to give you a better Palestine, you are sadly mistaken, and you are on the wrong side of history.
And by the way, there's a shady Republican group that is really playing that up now, sending fake digital ads to college students and other young adult voters, urging them to vote against Tammy Baldwin because she's not doing enough for Gaza, and it's completely off base, sick, but you don't. It's dark money funded, so you don't see that it's just Republicans making mischief. So
I'll say this quickly. Vote for Tammy Baldwin. This race is much closer than people think. Democrats are asleep at this. Eric Hovde is gaining. Tammy needs every single vote. Get out and canvass.
And we'll hear much more in the poll later today. And then you've got the bus tour that continues, so safe travels. We'll talk to you real soon.
Thanks, Patrick. We appreciate it. Thanks, Greg. Bye-bye.
All right, and coming up, Greg Bach is back 2 hours from now for Matinee on Air with Dr. Kristen, how do you say this? Lyerly is the name? Yes.
That's an newcomer to the political scene, a doctor, I guess. We'll see what she has to say.
And running for Congress as well. So that's coming up at 10. Yes, at 10:30. Thanks to all of you for being part of Up North News Radio. Enjoy your Wednesday. Follow us at upnorthnewswi.com. We'll see you tomorrow morning here up north.